Layla had always dreamed of her wedding day. Since she was a little girl, she imagined the perfect dress, the enchanting decorations, and the dream party. Now, at 28, that dream was about to become reality. She was engaged to Bernard, a young entrepreneur she met during a business trip. The love between them blossomed quickly, and after 2 years of dating, they decided to take the next step. Born into a wealthy family, Layla grew up in an imposing mansion on the outskirts of a thriving city. Her parents, Elizabeth and Richard, were prominent figures in the local society. Elizabeth was a renowned architect, while Richard managed an architecture firm. Despite the material comfort, Layla always felt the lack of a closer connection with her family. Her paternal grandparents, Dr. Harold, a respected lawyer, and Mrs. Beatrice, a socialite known for her elegant parties, rarely had time for play or casual conversations. On her mother's side, Grandfather George was a workaholic businessman always travelling, and Grandmother Margaret was fully dedicated to charitable works. Although Layla loved them, she felt an emptiness that no expensive gift or luxurious trip could fill. It was in this context that Mr. Jaime entered her life. Jaime was the handyman of the mansion, a simple man of humble origins who had worked for the family for decades. With his grey hair, a face wrinkled by time, and a gentle smile, Jaime quickly became a beloved figure to little Layla. While the adults were busy with their commitments, it was Jaime who taught Layla the little wonders of life. Together, they flew kites in the mansion's vast garden, the wind making the colours dance in the blue sky. Jaime showed Layla how to find worms after the rain, patiently explaining the important role of these little creatures in nature. With his skillful hands, he transformed old materials into magical toys, making Layla's eyes shine with joy. It was Jaime who held Layla's hand when she fell off her bike for the first time, who consoled her when her pet hamster died, and who enthusiastically applauded when she managed to swim the entire length of the pool for the first time. To Layla, Jaime was much more than an employee. He was her grandpa Jaime, the grandfather that life had gifted her. Now, on the eve of her wedding, Layla was at her mother's house discussing the final details of the ceremony. The spacious living room was filled with samples of flowers, colour palettes, and bridal magazines. Her mother, Elizabeth, was enthusiastically talking about the VIP guest list, while Layla looked distractedly out the window. It was then that she saw him. Jaime was in the garden, carefully pruning the rose bushes. Even at 75 years old, he was still dedicatedly tending to the household chores. Layla felt a wave of affection and gratitude flood her heart. "Excuse me, Mother," said Layla, standing up quickly. "I'll be back in a minute." She ran to the garden, feeling the soft grass under her bare feet. "Grandpa Jaime!" she shouted with the same excitement as when she was a child. Jaime turned, a smile lighting up his wrinkled face. "My little Layla," he said, taking off his gardening gloves. Layla hugged him, smelling the familiar scent of earth and soap. "Grandpa, my wedding is coming up. Have you reserved a nice outfit? I want you in the front row, okay?" she said playfully. Jaime seemed surprised. "Oh, my dear, I'm just a servant here in your family's house. Will I be invited to such an important event?" Layla's heart tightened. "Of course. You have never been just a servant, you have always been my Grandpa Jaime," she said, hugging him again. When the big day finally arrived, the banquet hall was stunning. White and gold flowers decorated every corner, and gentle classical music filled the air. Layla was radiant in her wedding dress, a silken lace model that enhanced her natural beauty. As she walked down the aisle, her eyes met Jaime's. He was almost hidden among the guests, visibly moved. Layla smiled at him, a smile full of love and gratitude. The ceremony was touching, with Bernard and Layla exchanging sincere vows of love and commitment. After the I do, the party began in great style. The dance floor soon filled up, with guests of all ages enjoying themselves to the sound of a live band. Jaime, however, felt out of place. He observed the elegant guests, many of whom recognized him as Layla's family gardener. Feeling inadequate, he decided to do what he knew best: help. Discreetly, Jaime headed to the kitchen. "Can I help with anything?" he asked one of the waiters. The young man, noticing Jaime's advanced age, hesitated. "Sir, you are a guest. You don't need to worry about this." But Jaime insisted. "Please, I would feel better if I could help." Reluctantly, the waiter handed Jaime a tray with glasses of sparkling wine. Carefully, Jaime began to circulate around the hall, offering the drinks to the guests. From afar, he observed Layla. She was radiant, dancing with Bernard, chatting animatedly with friends, hugging family members. Jaime smiled, happy to see her so fulfilled. The night advanced, and the party was in full swing. Jaime continued serving drinks, feeling useful and less out of place. It was then that the incident happened. A guest, already quite cheerful, was making awkward dance moves in the middle of the room. Jaime, carrying a tray full of red wine glasses, didn't see him approaching. The collision was inevitable. Jaime stumbled and the glasses flew. Time seemed to freeze. The red wine, as if in slow motion, spilled over Layla's immaculate white dress. A heavy silence fell over the room. All eyes turned to the bride, awaiting her reaction. Jaime was paralyzed, his face pale with horror. Layla, my dear, I am so sorry," he stammered, his hands trembling. Layla looked at her dress, now stained red, and then at Jaime. Her eyes filled not with anger but with concern. "Grandpa Jaime, are you okay? Did you hurt yourself?" The surprise was visible on everyone's faces. Layla approached Jaime, completely ignoring the state of her dress. "Why are you working? You were supposed to be having fun." Jaime, still shocked, stammered, I have always been an employee, dear. I didn't know how to fit in here." Layla's eyes filled with tears. She hugged Jaime tightly, not caring about the wine now staining her shoes as well. "Oh, Grandpa Jaime, I've told you 1,000 times. You have never been just an employee to me. You are my family." She stepped back a little, holding Jaime's wrinkled hands in hers. "And speaking of family, I saved a special dance for you." Without hesitation, Layla led Jaime to the center of the dance floor. The band, noticing the moment, began to play a soft melody. Layla and Jaime started to dance slowly, as if the rest of the world didn't exist. "Remember when you taught me how to dance, Grandpa?" Layla asked, smiling through her tears. "I was about 8 years old, and I kept stepping on your feet all the time." Jaime chuckled softly, his own tears running down his wrinkled face. "How could I forget? You were the most determined little girl I ever knew. You didn't give up until you made it." As they danced, the guests watched in silence, many with tears in their eyes. Bernard, the groom, was smiling with pride and love, recognizing the kindness and generous heart that made him fall in love with Layla. Elizabeth, Layla's mother, watched the scene with a mix of emotions. For the first time, she clearly saw the special bond that united her daughter with Jaime. She felt a pang of regret for not having valued more the presence of that simple and kind man in her family's life. Gradually, other couples began to join Layla and Jaime on the dance floor. The moment of tension turned into a celebration. When the music ended, Layla kissed Jaime's cheek affectionately. "Thank you for everything, Grandpa, for every moment, every lesson, every hug. You showed me what really matters in life." Jaime, too emotional to speak, just nodded, clasping Layla's hands between his own. The party continued into the night, but something had changed. Jaime no longer felt out of place. Guests came up to him, curious to meet the man Layla called Grandpa. He shared stories from Layla's childhood, making everyone laugh with her adventures and mischief. Layla's stained dress became a symbol. She refused to change it, saying the stains were a precious reminder of a moment of true love. When it was time for Layla and Bernard to leave for their honeymoon, Jaime was there to say goodbye. Layla hugged him tightly. "Grandpa Jaime, promise you'll be here when I return. We have many stories to tell my future children." Jaime smiled, his eyes shining. "I will be here, my dear. Always." The newlyweds' car left, and Jaime watched until it disappeared into the distance. His heart was full of joy and gratitude. He might not have blood ties with Layla, but the love between them was stronger than any biological relationship. That night, a precious lesson was shared with everyone present. True love knows no barriers of social class, age, or origin. It manifests in small gestures, in shared memories, in unconditional affection. Layla and Jaime showed that family goes beyond blood. It is about who stands by your side in moments of joy and sorrow, who teaches you, supports you, and loves you unconditionally. And so, a simple wine accident turned into one of the most beautiful and significant moments of that wedding. A moment that would be remembered and recounted for generations, not for the stain on the dress, but for the pure and true love it revealed. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.